Hi, welcome to the lesson in 5. This week's lesson is trials, tribulations, and lists. In the lesson this week, we explored the parts of the Bible that we usually skip over. We don't like to read those lists. But these lists show us an important thing about God. They tell us that God is interested in the little things. God is interested in the details of our lives. So I hope you're going to enjoy this week's lesson in 5. The first point in our lesson is the God of history. The lesson gives a flashback into history, and they look at how the articles in the temple had been taken away by Nebuchadnezzar, who was then king of Babylon. And now Ezra, as he begins the work of rebuilding the walls, brings out a detailed list of all the articles in the temple that were returned. This here is to show and give confidence to the people that God is faithful to his promises. God had promised that the people will be scattered, but now they come back. Then, as we keep reading the lesson, we go back into the life of King Belteshazzar, who was having a party, and in his party, God writes on the wall, and God gives a chilling warning that you, Belteshazzar, should have known better, because you saw what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. And many a times we, as God's people, have a vantage point. We should know better than to perpetuate the evils of yesteryear, and God calls us to correct those wrongs in our lives. The second point is in their cities. The cities of the people of Israel, particularly Jerusalem, had been ravaged by their enemies. They were destroyed mercilessly. And now the people come and begin to rebuild those cities that had been destroyed. This lesson is pointing to the rebuilding of destroyed things. Sometimes hope could have been shattered, but that hope can be rebuilt by Jesus Christ. Sometimes you might look at your life and it's all in broken pieces, but you can take courage and hope from the fact that Jerusalem, even after it was destroyed, was rebuilt. So your life can also be rebuilt by the same God who loves and cares for you. Where are the priests? See, after the exiles started coming back, not everybody was interested in rebuilding their lives in Israel, because many of them had pretty decent lives in Babylon. In fact, many of them got preoccupied with the comforts of Babylon, and many of them decided not to go back, including some of the priests. This gives us an important lesson. We shouldn't get too preoccupied with the comforts of Babylon that we forget that Babylon isn't home. We shouldn't get too comfortable in Babylon that we forget that we are not at home in Babylon. And the Israelites who decide to go back meet with a lot of trials, opposition, and difficulty, but they understood and had a clear concept in their minds that they had to go back because their home was not Babylon. Well, the process of going back to God may not always be an easy process, but there is an assurance that God has promised to be with his people. Humbled by God is the next point that we are exploring. You see, God had told Israel that if they disobeyed, he would scatter them and send them to lands far away. He would send them into captivity, but he promised that even if you're in captivity, if you call me, I will answer you and I will bring you back. And it's on the back of this promise that Ezra and Nehemiah stood, trusting that God would restore them and give them back the land that they had lost. When the people returned to Jerusalem, we find another list, the list of the people in the holy city. See, Jerusalem wasn't the most comfortable place to be in, because they would have to let go of their ancestral homes to settle in the city of Jerusalem. Maybe wouldn't even have the ability to farm their land because Jerusalem was in the city. But some people had to do it. Some people had to make the sacrifice. So they cast lots and they choose some people who will stay in Jerusalem, in the holy city. And sometimes people have to make sacrifices to be where God is and to accomplish God's purposes. Whatever sacrifice you're called to make, you can do it on behalf of the Master. There are many lessons that we can learn from the lists that we find in the books of Ezra and Nehemiah. But greatest is in the trials and tribulations, always remain faithful to God through it all. Hi, everybody. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Lesson in 5. If you've enjoyed it, please put your comments right down below. I would really enjoy getting your feedback, hearing what you enjoyed as you studied the lesson this week as well. So please put in your comments. Also give the video a thumbs up, like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Thank you very much. God bless you all and see you next week.